House will. The House will come back to order. House will come back to order. I'm going to ask the clerk to ring the bell. Let me get him started reading the privilege resolutions, and I'll be over there. Jennifer, you ready? The clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions. The clerk will read.
Resolution by Representative Morgan, 39th, recognizing and commending Mr. Clarence Webb on the occasion of his retirement. Resolution by Representative Dollar, the 45th, recognizing and commending Charles Wang. Resolution by Representative Dollar, the 45th, recognizing and commending Lisa Wang. Resolution by Representative Wilkerson, 33rd, honoring life and memory, Reverend Dwight C. Graves. A resolution by Representative Holcomb, 82nd, recognizing and commending Samola Nayak, winning the Georgia Association of Educators State Spelling Bee. Resolution by Representative Taylor, the 173rd, recognizing and commending Mrs. Carolyn Henry. Resolution by Representative Rogers, 26th, recognizing and commending Georgia Women of Achievement 2012 honoree Mrs. Beulah Rucker Oliver. Resolution by Representative Abdul Salam, 74th, recognizing and commending Mr. Arthur Hughes. Resolution by Representative Gardner, the 57th, recognizing and commending Georgia conservation voters and Mayor Kasim Reed. Resolution by Representative Gardner, 57th, recognizing the week May 13th through 19th, 2012, National Women's Health Week in Georgia. Resolution by Representative Abdul Salam, 74th, recognizing and commending Mr. Leonardo Leo Lucier Sr. on his outstanding public service. Resolution by Representative Abdul Salam, 74th, recognizing and commending Mr. Larry W. Buzzy. Resolution by Representative Clark, 104th, recognizing the second Wednesday in April 2012, Button Gwinnett Day at the Capitol. Resolution by Representative Abdul Salam, 74th, on the life and memory Mr. Leonardo Little Leo Lucier Jr. Resolution by Representative Williams, 89th, recognizing and commending Sister Madeline McCrary. Resolution by Representative Abrams, 84th, commending advancement by individual determination, AVID, recognizing March 28, 2012 as AVID Day at the Capitol. Resolution by Representative Parrish, 156th, recognizing and commending Mr. Randy Cardoza on his outstanding public service. Resolution by Representative Powell, 29th, on the life and memory Congressman Edgar Lanier Jenkins. Resolution by Representative Welch, 110th, on the life and memory Mr. Emmett Wilson Henley Jr. Resolution by Representative Parrish, 156th, recognizing and commending Ms. Jean Anderson Morgan. Resolution by Representative Jaspers, the 12th, recognizing and commending Alan Buford. Resolution by Representative Allison, 8th, commending Jeannie Bradley, Towns County High School's 2012 star student. Resolution by Representative Allison, the 8th, commending Ms. Sabrina Garrett, Towns County High School's 2012 star teacher. Resolution by Representative Williamson, 111th, recognizing and commending Cody Thomas. Resolution by Representative Williams, 111th, recognizing and commending Lee Talbot Williamson. Resolution by Representative Jackson, 142nd, on the life and memory Sergeant David Alexander Holmes. Resolution by Representative Flood, 66th, recognizing and commending Ms. Ann Louise Houston, occasion of her 80th birthday. Resolution by Representative Braddock, the 19th, recognizing and commending Hiram High School team pre-engineering students for winning the Real World Design Challenge. Resolution by Representative Allison, the 8th, commending Blairsville Scottish Festival Highland Games. Resolution by Representative Abdul Salam, 74th, recognizing and commending Ms. Sadie Thomas, occasion of her 101st birthday. Resolution by Representative Abdul Salam, 74th, recognizing and commending Clayton County Parks Recreation Department. Resolution by Representative Weldon, 3rd, recognizing and commending Heritage High School wrestling team winning the 2012 Georgia 3A State Traditional Championship. And resolution by Representative Ralston, 2nd, 7th, recognizing and commending Lieutenant Colonel Robert Marvin Bridges through the privilege resolutions.
Is there objection to the adoption of the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none. The resolutions are adopted.
Hey, Carl.
We're about to go back to the rules calendar. Before we do, I had two or three matters that I wanted to report to you on. The first is that this morning's update on Representative Lenmore James is that he is now home. He's resting comfortably, and we hope to have him here back with us on Thursday. I'm also, I wanted to share with you that the funeral for Cecilia Harbison, who is the wife of Senator Ed Harbison, is scheduled for Wednesday, March 28th at 11 a.m. at the Kingdom Metropolitan Worship Center in Columbus. The last word I had was that visitation had not been scheduled, but when we get that information, we'll pass it along at least by email. But Cecilia Harbison's funeral will be on Wednesday. I've also been asked to let you know that former Representative Johnny Floyd has been hospitalized at Crawford Long, Emory Midtown, with heart issues and has been scheduled for surgery. I don't know if that's today or tomorrow, or as we get additional information, we'll let you know, but keep former Representative Floyd in your thoughts and prayers. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 385. Senate Bill 385.
Senate Bill 385 by Senator Schaefer, 48th. Bill being entitled 33, relating to insurance, so as to provide for confidentiality of certain records of the Commissioner of Insurance, provide for exceptions, provide for certain premium taxes and the rate, manner of collection, to revise certain provisions regarding reinsurance. Bill having been before the House Committee on Insurance, the committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute. Bill's being read today for its third time.
Chair recognizes Chairman Golick to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, Senate Bill 385 comes to us at the request of the Insurance Department. It does three things. The first thing it does, the newly adopted National Association of Insurance Commissioner Credit for Reinsurance Model Law creates an additional class of reinsurer. This particular bill will create a new class of reinsurer. Reinsurers are insurance companies who insure the risks of other insurance companies. The insurance commissioner will have the authority to determine the financial strength of and the collateral required by each certified reinsurer. And again, this comes out of the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, their national accrediting organization. The second subject has to do with confidentiality. Again, the department is requesting that we clarify that the department can keep the analysis that it performs in the process of an exam confidential. This is a matter of NAIC compliance, according to the commissioner, and again, is part of the accreditation process. The final thing it does arises from legislation that we passed last year having to do with surplus lines insurance. Surplus lines insurance has to do with companies that take on risks that most conventional insurers will not take on. It's an aspect of the federal Dodd-Frank legislation that passed a couple of years ago and how we allocate premium taxes attached to surplus lines. This provides further clarification as to what needs to be done and when to comply with that federal act. With that, Mr. Speaker, again, this comes at the request of the Insurance Department. I'll answer any questions if I can.
You have a question if you yield.
Certainly.
Chair recognizes Representative Hatfield to your right for a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
Mr. Chairman, I was looking at, first of all, the provisions dealing with the confidentiality of certain documentation and data that's received by the Insurance Commissioner's Office, and then looking at lines 29 through 37. And that says, in subsection I, nothing contained in this code section shall prevent or be construed as prohibiting the Commissioner from disclosing the work papers, analysis, information, or a document described in subsection G of this code section to state, federal, or international regulatory agencies or state, federal, or international law enforcement authorities, so long as such recipient agrees in writing to treat such report confidentially and in a manner consistent with this title. My question is this, that in light of that provision, is that saying that those records are would only be if there was evidence of a crime that had been committed by a corporation or agents of a corporation? Would those records be withheld from law enforcement unless law enforcement agreed that they would keep those confidential?
No, there's no prohibition on law enforcement. This is where we have reciprocity between agencies, both the other insurance departments in the United States and international authorities as well, that we cooperate with under, again, reciprocal agreements, whereby if we share information with them, they go ahead and commit to keep it confidential and vice versa.
And Mr. Chairman, if you'll further yield.
Sure.
I'm sure that that is the intent of the bill. I just have some questions about the language that I just read and whether or not it actually accomplishes the intent.
Again, this is the language that the department has requested. They're very conscious of that concern. And again, this is under existing reciprocity agreements that work as of this minute just fine. So.
You have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll yield the well and ask for your support of Senate Bill 385.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 385 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 385. The ayes are 152, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 357. Senate Bill 357.
Senate Bill 357 by Senator Wilkinson, the 50th. Bill to be entitled Act amending Title II relating to timber products generally, so as to repeal the Georgia Treated Timber Products Act of 1973. Bill having been for the House Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs. Committee recommends this bill to pass. Bill is being read today for its third time.
Chair recognizes Representative Tankersley to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I stand before you today to bring you a good government bill. After carefully reviewing its laws, the Georgia Department of Agriculture found that the Treated Timber Act was outdated and unnecessary. GDA proposes repealing the Treated Timber Products Act of 1973. Currently, the treated wood industry is self-regulated through the American Lumber Standards Committee through the American Wood Preservers Association. Also, third-party inspection agencies such as Timber Products Inspection Incorporated are very popular with treated timber processors and dealers, and they ensure compliance with AWPA standards. In addition, most processors in Georgia have their very own quality control program. In other states, the treatment standards are not regulated. However, since wood treaters use a pesticide, they are regulated like other commercial applicators, and they are subject to inspections by the pesticide regulatory agency in the state that they're operating in. The GDA conducted 273 inspections at retailers and processors in Georgia last year, and because of the thoroughness of the self-regulation, they find very few, if any, violations each year. The GDA licenses 33 in-statement treated timber processors and 30 out-of-state treated timber dealers. The fee is only $120 per year, and in fiscal year 2011, GDA only collected $7,920 from treated timber licenses. This is an example of government regulating a service that the private sector now efficiently provides. Georgia is just one of 2 states with this law still on its books. I have several copies of the code section that we're proposing to repeal on my desk if you'd like to see a copy, and you also have a letter from Commissioner Black on your desk. My fellow House members, I ask for your favorable consideration of this bill. Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I yield the well.
You have questions if you care to yield.
I would yield for one question.
Just one?
Yes, sir. I know we're busy.
That's a good answer. Chair recognizes the chairman of the Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee, Chairman McCall, for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lady Yield.
Yes, I yield.
Is it not true that this bill came through the Ag Committee, and as usual, we vet things pretty good in there? Except there are a couple of questions that we forgot about.
Okay.
Does this have any direct relations to anything in Brooklet, Georgia?
We actually have a timber dealer in Brooklet, Georgia.
Will you yield for one more?
Yes, I will.
Is it not true that this furthermore is your first bill in the well?
Yes, it is. Mr. Speaker, if there are no further questions, I ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
You have a lot of inquiring minds with questions. The lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 357 will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock. Nope. Just teasing. Just making sure the clerk's office was paying attention. And members, have all members voted? Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of Senate Bill 357. The ayes are 156, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 337. Senate Bill 337.
Senate Bill 337 by Senator Goggins, the seventh. Bill to be entitled Act amending Title 33 relating to insurance generally, so as to provide for limitations on licensure requirements for certain health care providers, prohibit the conditioning of certain licensing for health care providers on the participation in health insurance plans and other activities. Bill having been before the House Committee on Insurance, the committee recommends this bill pass by committee substitute. Bill is being read today for the third time.
Chair recognizes Representative Taylor, Representative Darlene Taylor, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, today I bring you Senate Bill 337. In today's world, we need and are learning to be more health conscious. An important part of achieving good health has been accomplished by including wellness improvement programs in our medical and health plans. This bill extends those type of programs and incentives to life insurance carriers. With this bill, it will encourage and reward individuals as they do the things they should do, and many are already doing. Currently, Georgia law specifically excludes any type of rebating for life insurance. This will be an optional type of program being allowed through riders, and it is not mandatory. There are 38 states that have already approved this type of program, and they are doing well. I asked you to help Georgians to be rewarded for their healthy achievements with this, your favorable consideration for Senate Bill 337. Mr. Speaker, if I have no questions, I'll yield the well.
You do have a question.
Thank you. I'll take one.
Chair recognizes the Majority Caucus Whip, Representative Lindsay, to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the lady yield?
Yes, sir.
Is this your first bill?
Yes, sir, it is. Okay.
Just how will this healthy lifestyle impact the very important economic development plans in Buckhead regarding bars?
It will have a significant impact because those that have participated will have reduced rates and perhaps some discounts at local facilities.
Welcome.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, I'll yield the well.
No more questions. Lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 337 will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 337, the ayes are 158, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 464. Senate Bill 464.
Senate Bill 464 by Senator Ligon of the 3rd. Bill to be entitled, Act amending Title 27 relating to crabs so as to limit the number of commercial crabbing licenses issued by requirement court document when transferring a commercial crabbing license upon death, by for sale of commercial crabbing licensing in certain instances. Bill having been before the House Committee on Game, Fish, and Parks. Committee recommends this bill pass by substitute. Bill's being read today for the 3rd time.
Chair recognizes Representative Atwood to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring for your favorable consideration Senate Bill 464. It does about 4 separate things. First and foremost, it creates a one-day saltwater shore fishing license for $5. Tourism is about a $2 billion industry along the Georgia coast, and many visitors to our coast are non-residents. They want to go try their hand at fishing from one of our public piers, either on St. Simons or Jekyll or Tybee. And but however, currently it costs a non-resident $20 to purchase a 3-day combination hunting and fishing license, and this fee is a detriment for many to try their hand at this for a single day, especially adults who want to take their children out, mom and dad, grandparents that'd like to try it. So this license is created, will give visitors a lower cost option, which will encourage them to spend money with fishing related businesses in our coastal communities, thereby creating a positive economic impact. The second section of this bill reduces the number of commercial crab harvester licenses from 138 to 100 to remove the vessel requirement from a license transfer resulting from a sale, and to clarify the process of a license transfer due to the death or permanent disability. Commercial crabbing in Georgia has been under a controlled access system since 1998, with a total of 159 licenses available. And since implementation of the controlled access system, annual blue crab fishing efforts have remained constant, around 80 licenses with active licensees. An active licensee is a person whose major source of their income comes from commercial fishing. The remaining licenses are either not used or they're used only on a part-time basis. Following a steep decline, which really hurt us along the coast, the blue crab abundance due to the prolonged drought of 1998 to 2002, the Commissioner of Natural Resources suspended the license lottery, the process to reissue unused, unrenewed licenses. And this decision was made in an effort to reduce the fishing effort on a depleted blue crab population. And although the blue crab population has made some minimal improvements over the recent years, it still remains below the historical level in abundance. And since 2004, we've had 21 licenses have been retired, effectively bringing the number down to 138. The proposed change would further reduce the number to 100 licenses. All the licenses issued prior to May of 2013 will remain valid until such time as the license is not renewed. And this attrition process will be used to reduce those effectively down to 100, which is a more workable number and will help the crab population, we believe. One thing the bill also does is it increases the severity of penalties for unlawfully tampering with a commercial crab trap. These crab traps cost about $40 a piece. These folks make their livelihood at this enterprise, and we don't want folks messing with their crab traps and their source of their livelihood. So we're asking for a little bit more tougher penalties in that regard. All of the changes proposed in this bill are supported by the Department of Natural Resources. They have the support of the regulated industry. The Blue Crab Advisory Panel supports this. The DNR Fisheries Advisory Council also supports this. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well for questions if there are any.
You do have questions. Do you yield?
I do, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Sims to your left for a question.
Does Jim yield?
I do.
Is this the amendment you were putting on that massage therapy practice this morning?
No, sir. That was an amendment specifically designed for my good friend.
I just want to ask another question. Do you know the difference between a he crab and a she crab?
Only in soup, sir.
I understand. And if you can you explain that to us?
I cannot, and I will at this time, Mr. Speaker, yield the well. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 464 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 464, the ayes are 159, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Chair recognizes the chairman of the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee, Chairman Golick, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Judiciary non-civil will meet briefly in the Speaker's conference room right now. Judiciary non-civil meeting in the Speaker's conference room immediately. Thank you.
The chair wants to announce that Senate Bill 362 will be postponed to the next legislative day. We have a supplemental rules calendar. A supplemental rules calendar. Those have been passed out. They're on your desk. The clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1731.
House Resolution 1731 by Representative Rice, 51st, a resolution creating the House Comprehensive Motor Vehicle Traffic Reform Study Committee. Bill resolution having been for the House Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil. Committee recommends do pass. Resolution being read today, third time.
Chair recognizes the Chairman of the Motor Vehicles Committee, Chairman Rice, to present the resolution.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon. House Resolution 1731 is a resolution that forms a study committee that Chairman Golick and I have talked about for a long time and are now hopefully in the process of implementing. Basically, it's to take a look at all the traffic laws and the motor vehicle laws in Georgia and attempt to make a great deal of sense out of them from something that right now is a patchwork of a number of different laws created over several years. Has to do with the DUI law, the driving schools, a number of other issues that we want to take up in this committee. And Mr. Speaker, if there's any questions, I would stand for them now.
You have no questions.
Thank you for your consideration. Bye-bye.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution now be adopted? All those in favor of the adoption of House Resolution 1731 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the adoption of House Resolution 1731. The ayes are 154, the nays are 0. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 268. Senate Bill 268.
Senate Bill 268 by Senator Staten of the 18th. Bill to be entitled Act of Enacting Board of Education, Jones County, so as to provide that future elections, Board of Education members shall be conducted on a nonpartisan basis. Bill having been for the House Committee, Intergovernmental Coordination. Committee recommends do pass. Bill's being read today for its third time.
Chair recognizes Representative Holmes to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring Senate Bill 268, which states that all future elections for the Jones County Board of Education will be conducted nonpartisan. This bill has the unanimous support of the entire Jones County delegation. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
You have no questions. Lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 268 will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 268, the ayes are 120, the nays are 30. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Resolution 843. Senate Resolution 843.
Senate Resolution 843 by Senator Mullis, 53rd. Resolution honoring the life of Mr. Burt Ward, dedicating a bridge in his memory. The resolution having been for the House Committee on Transportation. The committee recommends the resolution be adopted by committee substitute and is being read today for its third time.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the House Transportation Committee, Chairman Roberts, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the road naming bill. It's come over from the Senate. We've attached those resolutions that were not in time to get amended to the House version, so we have now attached those to the Senate version. They're doing the same over there, but that's simply all this bill does. Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to answer any questions. If not, I yield the will.
You have no questions. Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution be adopted? All those in favor of the adoption of Senate Resolution 843 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the adoption of Senate Resolution 843, the ayes are 154, the nays are 0. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 302. Senate Bill 302.
Senate Bill 302 by Senator Staten of the 18th, a bill to be entitled Act Title 20 relating to Georgia Higher Education Facilities Authority so as to increase the amount of bonding authority. Bill having been for the House Committee on Higher Education. The committee recommends bill do pass. This bill is being read today. It's third time.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the Higher Education Committee, Chairman Rogers, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I would present to you Senate Bill 302, Georgia Higher Education Facilities Authority. Senate Bill 302 increases maximum authorization from $300 million to $500 million. This increased authorization will continue to support needed revenue-producing projects by the Board of Regents and Technical College System of Georgia. All projects must continue to have self-liquidating revenue sources for repayment. There is no state constitutional limit. It does not come back to our bonded indebtedness that we have in the state. All these are self-supported funding through revenue, through the department, I should say the Board of Regents. If there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have a question if you care to yield.
I'd be glad to.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin to your right for a question.
Well, gentlemen, yield.
Be glad to.
Chairman Rogers, can you tell me the self-liquidating damages, isn't that pretty consistent through all of our authorities, that they have to have monies to pay for the bonds if they're going to?
That is correct. This was a bill that was passed. We passed it back in 2006, and everything is self-liquidating, self-funded, and they have to do a projection analysis before they can sell the bonds.
But my question, and I appreciate it, gentlemen, if you further yield, along with these bonds, other bonds from authorities in the state, they too are self-liquidating.
That's
so this
correct.
keeps this consistent with all the other authorities that have self-liquidating language. Is that not true?
That is true.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well. Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 302 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of Senate Bill 302. The ayes are 146, the nays are 10. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. The clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 236. Senate Bill 236.
Senate Bill 236 by Senator Cowser, 46. The bill being entitled Title 40, relating to cancellation, suspension, revocation, driver's license, providing for matters relative to driver's license of persons convicted driving under the influence, to amend Title 42 relating to ignition interlock devices as probation condition, so to provide the courts with more authority with regard to the availability of ignition interlock device limited driving permits or probationary licenses and habitual violator probationary license for drivers convicted of a second DUI, to provide for a court the ability to issue a certificate for such permits and licenses. Bill having been for the House Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil. Committee recommends the bill pass by committee substitute. Bill is being read today for its third time.
The chair recognizes Representative Ramsey to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill simply allows for a bill that's been worked on by the Mothers Against Drunk Driving and the law enforcement community. It provides for a limited driving permit for individuals that have had a DUI. You have to have it first. You have to have an ignition interlock device put on the car, and it's limited only for going to his or her place of employment, attending a college or school, and attending regularly scheduled sessions or meeting of treatment and support, and going for monthly monitoring visits. It also has an amendment that was added on in the Rules Committee, a relatively unrelated proposal, but a very good piece of legislation that allows for children of military personnel that have been transferred here to have their driver's ed credits transferred into the state. That's something that we found was an anomaly in the law, and this fixes that. Mr. Speaker, if there are no questions, I yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
You've got a couple of three questions. Do you yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Davis to your left for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
We're just looking at this for the first time on the supplemental calendar. Lines 289 through 295 of the bill talk about the court at its discretion can waive the interlock device requirements in cases that might have undue financial hardship. And I'm wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Well, my thoughts are that I think you would potentially have constitutional issues based on ability of the person's right to pay to comply with this section of the code, and I think it's important that we vest in the judge the ability to have some discretion in that regard to satisfy any constitutional issues.
Well, we have convicted felons and whatnot that might be released from prison that are day reporting, and they have certain fees involved with that, and we don't offer them hardship waivers. I'm just wondering why we're doing that with DUI.
I think it's appropriate in this instance to provide the judges with that kind of discretion. We're talking about folks that are no longer in prison, that the judge has keeping close tabs on, monitoring via a reporting program. I think it's appropriate in this instance.
Thank you.
You have other questions if you care to yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee to your left for a question. Chairman Chanel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the gentleman in the well, you yield.
Yes, sir.
This question is purely informational in nature. Do we have a way of keeping up with people who have DUIs in other states? I mean, I know we keep up with if it's the first DUI in Georgia, but what if they're from Alabama and got two over there, and then they're from Tennessee and they got one or two of that? Do we keep up with that, or if we do, how do we do it?
We do. Yeah, it's available via information sharing mechanisms within the law enforcement community, Mr. Chairman. All 50 states do that.
So routinely, we have access to that information nationwide. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to yield the well. It's a good bill supported by the law enforcement community, the judges, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Appreciate your favorable consideration, and I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. What purpose does Representative Crawford rise? State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that lines 55 and 56 of this legislation appear to authorize electronic online treatment courses so that the offenders would not have to appear in person to do that?
May I recognize you to tell me again those lines, Representative?
Lines 55 and 56.
And your question was, did it appear that the bill authorized the commissioner to authorize to offer these courses electronically online?
Yes, sir, which would negate the requirement of the person coming in person to complete the course.
Unless someone can show the chair differently, I would agree that the commissioner would be authorized to do that under the wording on the bill. What purpose does Representative Coomer rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true, Mr. Speaker, that language only applies to high school students taking a course and not for people to have their license reinstated?
Well, I haven't read the entire bill, but it's in section 1. If the gentleman states that that's the part to do with high school students, I think the gentleman would probably be accurate. What purpose does the chairman of the Transportation Committee rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that already in this state for you to be able to go online to take a driver's ed course that will meet the requirements for Joshua's Law currently in this state?
If the gentleman so states.
Thank you, Mr.
What purpose, now we'll get it cleared up. What purpose does Representative Ramsey rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your
Mr. Speaker.
inquiry.
Is it not true that the course discussed on lines 55 and 56 is simply the course that teenagers routinely take to get a reduction in a point on their insurance, informing them of the dangers of drug and alcohol use, and does not, in fact, apply to individuals that have had DUI convictions, Mr. Speaker?
After reading it further, that language is in Section 1 of the bill, which does appear to deal with the student situation as opposed to the offender. I think the gentleman is correct. What purpose does Representative Abdul Salam rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Yes, I thank you for referring us back to Section 1, but particularly in the section where the question was originally raised, starting at line 51, it does speak to the alcohol and drug courses, which a teenager applying
Which
for
are
a
in
license.
Section 1.
No, we're in Section 1, lines 51, starting at line 51. I'm trying to see my screen. It does relate to offering alcohol and drug courses and being able to do that online. Am I not correct?
In the context of the student driver.
Yes, sir.
That's the chair's interpretation.
So the student wouldn't have a requirement for alcohol and drug courses.
That is an existing law, Representative, and I think that
The additional law,
answer,
I'm sorry.
I think the answer is yes.
Because
you might want to consult with Representative Ramsey. He's right there near
Yes, sir.
you, and he's the author or the House author of this bill.
Thank you, sir. The new section is what is confusing. Thank you.
Okay, what purpose does the minority leader of the House rise?
Parliamentary
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that the lines being referenced refer, as Mr. Ramsey pointed out, only to the offering of a course that is given to high school students for the purposes of reducing points on their license, and that this has no force or effect with the general DUI courses that are required to remediate any violations of our DUI laws by adults?
The lady is correct in the opinion of the chair.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, previous question has been ordered. There is an amendment. There is an amendment that's in your books. This was an amendment approved by the Rules Committee, Amendment AM 292015. The clerk will read the amendment.
Representative Ramsey of the 72nd Office following amendment, amend the House Committee on Judiciary's non-civil substitute, Senate Bill 236. Amendment has been printed and placed on your desk this afternoon, upper right-hand corner, AM 292015.
Is there objection to adopting Amendment AM 292015? Chair hears none. The amendment is adopted. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute as amended? The chair hears none. The committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 236 will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of Senate Bill 236, the ayes are 170, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 117. Senate Bill 117.
Senate Bill 117 by Senator Stone, 23rd, a bill of entitled 44 relating to exemptions from levy and sale of property so as to increase the amount of certain exemptions. This bill having been for the House Committee on Judiciary, the committee recommends the bill do pass. The bill is being read today for its third time.
Chair recognizes Chairman Jacobs to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring before you today Senate Bill 117. Senate Bill 117 increases the bankruptcy exemption, the state law bankruptcy exemption that exists in our code for the debtor's homestead. Right now, that exemption is $10,000. This would exempt up to $21,500 of the debtor's equity from being able to be attached by the Chapter 7 trustee. I've taken a look, and I will note to members of the House that we have not increased the bankruptcy exemption for homesteads in a couple of decades. We are toward the bottom of the pack in terms of states. This puts us kind of more in the middle of the pack. It does not take us to anywhere near the top in terms of where we would fit vis-a-vis other states and their homestead exemptions. It also puts us in line with some federal exemptions that exist for this same purpose. So, Mr. Speaker, if I have no questions, I will yield the well. I ask for the House's favorable consideration of Senate Bill 117.
You have no questions?
All right, I yield the well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 117 will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 117, the ayes are 159, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 402. Senate Bill 402.
Senate Bill 402 by Senator Golden of the 8th, a bill being entitled Act amending Title 47, Public Retirement System Investment Authority Laws, will provide title, define certain terms relating to certain types of investments, provide the provisions of this act shall be applicable only to the Employees Retirement System of Georgia, provide that the Teachers Retirement System shall be exempt from the provisions of this act to amend Code Section 50-18-72 relating to when public disclosure of records is not required and disclosure exempting legal authority. Bill having been for the House Committee on Retirement, the committee recommends bill passed by substitute. Bill is being read today for the third time.
The chair recognizes the chairman of the Retirement Committee, Chairman Maxwell, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring before you this afternoon Senate Bill 402, ERS of Georgia Enhanced Investment Authority Act. A little background on this bill. Georgia is the only state in the country where a fund of employees' retirement system the size of ERS is not allowed to use alternative investments. All other 49 states are allowed to use this in their retirement funds. We've got over 200 universities and their foundations, such as the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Duke, and the University of Virginia, all use this form of investment. This bill is enabling legislation that allows the Division of Investment Services the option of investing in these vehicles, providing another means for asset diversification for our ERS investment professionals. Alternative investments include a wide variety of investments that are outside traditional stocks, bonds, and monetary funds. Now, this bill does not apply to the teacher's retirement system, but only to the ERS and certain other large systems under Title 47-2084. And this bill is supported by all the counties and cities that are impacted by this legislation. The ERS Board of Trustees voted unanimously in December to endorse this legislation, and that was following a unanimous favorable recommendation by the Investment Committee. Now, as Senate Bill 402 is written, provides certain protections for the ERS fund. It does not specify participation in investments based on geography. It provides that all decisions on investments will be determined by the ERS investment professionals. Each investment requires at least 4 other investors on the same terms not affiliated with the issuer. So it cannot be a lender of last resort. That situation cannot occur. Each investor shall only be made in private pools and issuers that have at least $100 million in assets. And a code of ethics must be adopted relating to investing in and depositing of these investments. Now, the director of the system, we got reporting requirements on this bill. The director of the system must provide a report to the Senate and House retirement committees and the governor on the second Monday of each March. Also, a copy of the annual report will be posted on the Employer Retirement System's website, and this report must include performance of investments, including a clear statement of profit and loss for the past year. Now, some statistics on alternative investments. The average amount invested in alternative investments at other public pension funds was about 13% in 2010. This was according to Bloomberg News. The investment cap in Senate Bill 402 will be one of the lowest in southern states. The cap on these investments in other southern states range from 5% to above 70% of total funds. And for example, a public pension fund in Texas has $44 billion of its $110 billion in alternative investments, and it yielded a return over the last year of about 22%. According to Foundation annual reports, Georgia Tech has 59% of their assets allocated in these types of funds, and the University of Georgia Foundation has 52%. The 10-year return at Georgia Tech is over 8.2% versus about 5.1% for ERS for the same 10-year period. And then the Senate 402 had strong bipartisan support. Republican Majority Leader Chip Rogers and Democratic Caucus Chairman Doug Stoner were among the lead co-sponsors. The Senate Retirement Committee voted 6-0 to recommend the bill to the full Senate on February the 23rd, and the State Senate voted overwhelmingly 50-4. Again, 50-4 to approve Senate Bill 402. This is a carefully crafted piece of legislation, and as chairman of the House Retirement Committee, I strongly support us allowing alternative investments for our ERS fund. We got to keep ERS both sound financially and secure, and I believe this bill will continue to allow that to happen. Now, the House Retirement Committee further perfected Senate Bill 402. We made a couple of changes in here. One of the changes was on lines 175 and 181, and that's the section that said the director of the system must provide a report to the Senate and House Retirement Committees and the governor on the second Monday of each March, and it's got to be posted on their website. And we added a language on lines 104 and 106, and this was something that the GSRA asked for, and they were pretty happy when we did this. No undue or political influence. That language was added at their request. So, Mr. Speaker, this is the bill. I think this is something that's long past overdue for the state of Georgia, and I would ask for favorable consideration. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them.
You've got a number of questions. Do you yield?
Yes, sir. I'll take a few.
Chair recognizes the Majority Caucus Whip, Representative Lindsay, for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Representative, within the investment community, is this not considered a best practice for raising the needed return on our pension investments, and is supported and endorsed by the Georgia Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you for bringing this very important bill.
Thank you.
Chair, do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Dukes to your left for a question.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, what is the status of our investment funds now with ERS?
We're about 80%, 82 to 84% as far as fully funded.
So currently we exist a lack of investment to pay out the commitments that we already have outstanding commitments.
Well, that would be if we had to pay everything out today, we'd be at about 84%. Now, our fund, as far as the money as we bring into the fund through investments every year, we're in mid-range within the states. We're about between the 40 and 50 percentile as far as our investment returns every year. And again, this is just another tool in the toolbox for our investment division to use. There's a limit on the investments. I think I mentioned that. 5% total. We cannot invest more than 5% of our investments in this fund, 1% per year.
Okay. And if we are not fully funded and there is a need for additional funds, where would that money come from?
That money comes out of the state treasury. If there's a shortfall, we have a contractual obligation to our retirees and employees. We have to pay their retirement. So it'd be up to the taxpayers of the state of Georgia to meet that, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
The chair recognizes Representative Alan Powell to your right for a question.
My friend yield.
Yes, sir.
Did I understand you to say, are there any of the retirement systems not included under this?
TRS is not included. Their board has not asked for us to include teachers' retirement system, sir.
Further yield.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain why TRS, since that's the biggest of the retirement systems, didn't want any part of this?
Their board has not come to us and asked for it at this time. As soon as their board asked for it, and the people I've talked to with Page and GAE, they're happy with this bill. They think there seem to be we vetted this thing really carefully, and from what I understand, there would probably be not much opposition to it. But the Board of Trustees has not asked for it this time. ERS and TRS has a separate board. The ERS board did ask for us to pursue this legislation.
Thank you.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Dudgeon to your right for a question.
Does the chairman yield?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that as I travel the country in my high-tech job that Georgia gets a black eye because we're the only state who doesn't allow this? And that if we do pass this bill, that actually will be an economic development to Georgia because high-tech companies have been willing to locate here.
Well, yes, sir, you're correct. We're the only state in the nation that doesn't allow our large retirement system to do this, and I think we're probably frowned on in the investment community for not allowing it. I'll take one more question, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Al Williams to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true, sir, that some of my best friends in this House and this state are now members of this retirement system?
Yes, sir, we are. All of us are in this retirement system. It'll be...
Is it not further true that I would definitely not do anything to hurt any of our retirees if I felt in any way that this bill would cause them problems?
I believe you're correct, sir. I certainly hope you're going to support this bill.
Is it not true that I hope that when they look at their checks in a few years, they will come and thank me because I do plan to support this bill, and thank you for bringing it.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, Representative Williams. Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well and ask for your favorable support on this legislation. I really think this is a good piece of legislation. It's time for Georgia to become part of the other 50 states and allowing this to happen. Thank you.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. There is a minority report. There is a minority report on Senate Bill 402. Under the rules of this House, Representative Debbie Buckner is recognized to speak to the minority report. Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, first of all, I want to say thank you to Chairman Maxwell because we were allowed to make some really good changes to the bill in the area of disclosure and posting what information we can about the investments should the bill pass. And we also added an ethics piece to the bill, which I think did enhance the bill. But I have to come to you today because I have been flooded with calls and emails from people back home that are afraid of this bill. And I just feel like I can't let it pass without sharing some of the things that they have shared with me. And the biggest question for them is, Why ERS? ERS is in there and teachers aren't. And the simple answer of TRS didn't ask for it prompted them to say, well, we don't want it. Why are we in it? How can we get out of it? And so when we tried an amendment of that type, it didn't go very far. These are state employees that are retired. These are state employees, for whatever reason, do not receive a cost of living increase, and teachers do. These are state employees that are living on the edge, some of them, because the income that they earned as employees was low, but they were promised great benefits. And now sometimes with the increase in the health coverage, their state retirement check is very difficult for them to make ends meet. They are afraid. They are afraid that the risk of these investments will jeopardize the check that comes into their home that they're counting on. They don't distrust us totally, they're just afraid of the market. They've sent me articles from all over about, I even have an article that was in the Wall Street Journal on February 29th where the Japanese investment firm lost $2.27 billion, and the regulators and the pension fund managers did not know what happened to their money. And it had an elaborate, could this happen to us? I'm having difficulty with this bill because in the conversations that we've had about it, I remember being told that the state retirement system of Georgia is considered to be in the middle of the pack with its funding, and that we have done very well by having more money in our state retirement system than many other states, even though we're using very safe investment plans. I heard that we're being made fun of, or that there's concern that we are not using riskier investments. But I thought we had changed the law a couple of years ago to allow some things that were a little riskier, and that we were going to wait a little while to see how that worked out for us. I think what it comes down to, for me, is that if indeed this does pass, and we do invest in some riskier investments, I hope we will all be very, very committed to realizing that there are thousands of people across the state that depend on this check, depend on it to be at a level to take care of their needs, because they took care of us when they were working for us every day. I think we need to know that they are afraid, and that we need to be very careful about what we do with this bill. And because I have been asked by so many to be opposed to this bill, is why I filed the minority report. I voted against it in committee, and I will vote for it against it when it comes before us in just a few minutes. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
You have questions if you care to yield. Lady has yielded the well. Chair recognizes the chairman of the Retirement Committee. He now gets the closing argument. Chairman Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple of points the lady made. I've been on the Retirement Committee a total of 8 years, and we've had this battle continuous about the cost of living increase on TRS versus the ERS employees. Back in '82, there was some changes made the way the ERS system was funded. This happened long before I got here, and long before quite a few of us got here. But basically, the TRS pre-funds their COLA. they have a COLA built into what they pay into the retirement system. They pay roughly, employees paying close to 7% of their money into the retirement fund. The ERS employees put about 1.25% in, and like I said, this is something that was changed back in '82. So the TRS is basically pre-funded COLAs, and the COLA for the ERS has to be at ad hoc. Now, they were given COLAs up to several years ago. One year we wrote them a check because every time you add a COLA, it's about $325 million added on to the expense of the fund, and that's a continuous benefit, and it's compounded every time you give one. So for the last few years, they have not been getting a COLA, and I understand their angst over that. But again, that was the way things were set up back in the 80s for the TRS to basically be pre-funded. Now, the lady mentioned about the our portfolio, what we have now. I want to tell you, we've got about 75% of our funds in common stock. Common stock is the most risky investment you can put your money into. If that company goes out of business, there's a hierarchy of who gets money out of that fund. Right now, the structure is bank loans. They get the money first if there's any assets left. Secured loans, unsecured loans, and mezzanine loans, which is different forms of alternative investments. And then you get the preferred and common stock. So any amount of money put into these alternative investments is actually one level of security above common stocks, where 75% of our money in the ERS is invested now. The other concern, again, I mentioned before that we're only going to put in 1% per year, a maximum of 5%. Now, if the ERS investors decide to only put in, say they put in 0.75% one year, they can't go in the next year and put in a 1.25%. They can only put in 1% per year. Now, if it gets up to 4.5% totally invested in alternative funds, then they have they can go ahead and bump it up to the 5%. But I think this is a safe investment. I've been on retirement 8 years. I'm as concerned as anybody about the safety of our fund. I'm also concerned about the investments that we invest in. We need to be investing in the best possible assets to bring the better returns into our fund, and I believe this will be a help to us. Mr. Speaker, with that, I'll yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 402 will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. For what purpose does Representative Reese rise? Representative, they tell me you need to press your button.
Oh, okay.
Now you're on.
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that many of us have received multiple hundreds of phone calls from current retirees who are greatly concerned about this bill? And isn't it further true, Mr. Speaker, that many who are employed by the state of Georgia today are concerned about the security of their retirement funds?
If the lady so states, I know that she believes that to be true. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of Senate Bill 402, the ayes are 104, the nays are 53. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Chair announces that Senate Bill 492 will be postponed to the next legislative day. If you have an announcement, please sign up with a messenger immediately. We are not finished. The House will come to order. House will come to order. House will be at order. I don't think we've had a motion to adjourn. Chairman Meadows on the floor? Okay. The chair would request, we do have some members who are waiting on Senate action on local bills. Given where we are in the session, the chair would ask for unanimous consent to instruct the clerk's office that if and when those bills come in this afternoon, that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow those bills to be read and assigned to committee. Is there objection? Hearing none, by unanimous consent, the clerk's office is so instructed to act on local bills coming over from the Senate in that fashion. I also want to announce that copies of the conference committee report and the tracking document on House Bill 742, the General Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2013, have been placed on your desk. Now, follow me here. You have absolute permission to take those with you when you leave. And if you do that, then you're also instructed to bring those back in the morning because we're trying to save money. Okay? So you can take them with you, just bring them back tomorrow, because I anticipate that amongst all the other matters that we will do in business tomorrow is that we will receive the conference committee report from the chairman of the Appropriations Committee and act thereon. What purpose does Chairman Sims rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
State
Speaker.
your inquiry.
On the local bills, is it not true that this does not include bills that will agree or disagree? Those will still come through the committee. These are not Senate bills. These are only Senate bills that are coming over. These are not the agrees and disagrees.
These are simply first readers.
I just wanted to make sure that that
is correct.
body understood that. Thank you, sir.
That is correct. All right, we have some announcements. If you have an announcement, you need to make your way down to the front. The chair recognizes the chair of the Majority Party Caucus, Chairman Sheldon, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There will be a majority caucus meeting tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., 606 CLOB.
Chair recognizes Chairman Hamilton for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Governmental Affairs Committee has a meeting with something on the calendar in 415 CLOB immediately upon adjournment. We do need a quorum immediately upon adjournment. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Neal for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. State Institution and Property will meet at 4 o'clock. That's 4 o'clock today in room 515. State Institution and Property, 4 o'clock in room 515.
That appears to complete our announcements. Okay. Tomorrow will be Legislative Day 39. The last day that we have a rules calendar. The chair recognizes the representative from the 71st House District, Representative Horn, for a motion. Representative Horn.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand in recess until 5 p.m., at which time we will adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow, March 27th.
On the motion of the gentleman that this House be in recess until 5 o'clock p.m. and then stand adjourned until Tuesday, March 27th at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. All those opposed will say no. I think they voted no for you, Representative Horn. The motion clearly carries. This House will be in recess until 5 p.m. and then will be adjourned until 10 o'clock a.m. tomorrow morning.